So I think we can all agree that one of the coldest power in all of One Piece is of course Conqueror's Haki. And when it comes to that, the poster child of it is no one else than Red Hair Shanks. He's constantly revered for his mastery of Conquerors, and I'd go out on a limb and say he may just be the single most powerful Supreme King Haki user, like, ever. But is that actually true? I want to test that today by stacking every other Conqueror in One Piece against him and seeing if anyone can actually dethrone Shanks for that title, and why it's so important that somebody hopefully can. Now, Shanks himself is pretty much the pinnacle of piracy in the modern era. He displays the first use of Conqueror's Haki in chapter 1 of the story, and he's generally set the metrics that Luffy will inevitably have to surpass one day. We do know that his Haki would have been capable of easily dropping 100,000 Fishman soldiers during Fishman Island compared to Luffy's only 50,000 feet. Now you might ask, how do we know that? Well, it turns out that in SBS volume 65, Oda directly says so, that Shanks and Rayleigh could have knocked out all 100,000 Fishman pirates opposing the Straw Hats with their Supreme King Haki. In other words, it's 100,000 minimum. Also, his Conqueror's Will is so strong that it's able to cancel out the future sight Haki of other users, and he's able to use advanced Conqueror's Infusion to strengthen his own blade to the absolute maximum. This man here can even force a Logia Fruit user out of their Devil Fruit form from hundreds of miles away. But you might be asking, what makes him a true Conqueror, and honestly, what lets anyone really be a Conqueror in One Piece? Well, it is said that those who have unlocked Supreme King Haki have the qualities of kings and are candidates chosen by heaven itself, one in less than a million. That's why they are very occasionally called Supreme Rulers. So really, all Conqueror's Haki truly boils down to is having the spirit and willpower to dominate others with your own desires, and having the traits of good leadership, or at least naturally pursuing a goal that requires surpassing others at all costs. Now for Shanks specifically, I kind of have a feeling that we'll be learning a lot more very soon what truly pushes him to conquer, as his secret past in Marijua is slowly being revealed, but for now we do know that he really cares about the next generation. This upcoming era, full of powerhouses like Luffy, Yamato, Kobe, etc., is bound to make some crushing waves, and Shanks seems to push forward with that in mind. I actually do believe that his Conqueror spirit comes from his will and desire to change the future. Blackbeard, Emu, Garling, all of these figures need to be overthrown at some point to finally make room for the next Sun God and a new period of hopefully peace in the One Piece world, and it does seem that Shanks will conquer them at all costs. And with his crazy Haki, he's bound to make some insane moves. I mean, honestly, it kind of makes sense. He's a child of destiny, we know at this point, so he was bound to have some epic powers. Not to mention, he had 3 mentors who are all clearly complete Haki masters, including Conqueror's itself. Speaking of which, actually, since they are also the next generation's mentors at this point, we should talk about them here too. Because at this point, it's clear that Shanks has surpassed Rayleigh and Gaban, but not many other people in the story have. Remember, Rayleigh fully trained Luffy in all of the Haki types and was able to square up with Gear 4 Luffy pretty handily. Now, of course, not all of that is due to his Conqueror's Haki, but considering that he was trying to level up Luffy as much as he could in 2 years, I kind of feel like Rayleigh wouldn't have been pulling all of his punches here. And Gaban is pretty much in the same boat, casually toying with Zoro and Luffy after their insane power-ups they got from Egghead Island and Wano, but he did call it quits once Luffy was about to burst out Gear 5. So I think that we can generally kind of comfortably scale both of them to, you know, that Gear 4 level, but the jury is still very much out on that one. He could have just hung up the towel because he was satisfied seeing that Luffy had actually awakened Gear 5 and actually be much stronger still. And there is a good case to be made for exactly that, because Scopper also revealed to us that the true power of advanced Conqueror's Infusion can even disable the Holy Knight's regeneration, and I'm kind of thinking that it could possibly even disable other techniques associated with the Dark Abyss powers. So at a minimum, he's very well versed in what Conqueror's Haki is truly capable of, and yet he still relied on Shanks to contain Loki's immense power. At least we think so. So I kind of feel like we can comfortably put the former Wings of the Pirate King below Shanks right now, at least in terms of their absolute Haki peak feats. But what is less clear is why their will even manifested to begin with. I mean, we do know that Rayleigh is called the Dark King, but it's never truly explained why, what, or how that ever came to be. I mean, him and Scopper really just cashed out fully after they found the One Piece, pulled some absolute baddies, let's not beat around the bush here, and kind of like chilled a little bit, so there isn't too much to go off of in the current age, but my guess would be that everything happened in their past. I mean, they sailed with the Pirate King and pushed him to that spot together. They are the true wings of the first Pirate King, and to do that, they must have both wanted to find the One Piece almost as bad as he did. So I would guess that their Haki bloom simply manifested from their unparalleled desire to achieve the very same dream as Roger. But I will admit that while Rayleigh is still very much in the air and we have no real ability to scale him properly, there is a little bit more to go on with my big boy Scopper here. Because there is at least a case to be made that he manifested his Haki through love. Because in case you didn't notice, this man is all about that ooey gooey emotional stuff, and we all know the classic love conquers all trope in the media, and I can definitely see a world where his love for his family and women, and his crew I guess, lets him unleash this insane upscale power. So in a nutshell, those are some already big hitters and people that probably are close-ish at least to Shanks' level in Haki, but let's head back down to the bottom real quick to show you how big the gap really is between the Haki King himself and some casual old boring Conquerors. Because let's be real here, Ace and Kid might as well not have had Conqueror's Haki at all because, dang, it's like doing nothing. Ace dropped a couple of dudes with it as a child and then kind of never really used it again, I think. I'm not sure he realized he even had it to begin with. I don't know. We definitely know that Conqueror's Haki can run in a family because when Luffy uses it at Marineford, people comment that, you know, kind of makes sense with him being Dragon's son and Garp's grandson, but it's not necessarily a guarantee or even a prerequisite, as many Conquerors in the series do not share that trait with their family at all. And while he was Roger's son, to me, all it really means is that Ace having Conquerors should have been something that Whitebeard called out more, in my opinion, but hey, I guess to each their own. Oda still hadn't figured everything out, it seems, when it came to Haki anyway, so do what you want, Newgate, but man, you should have tried to work this guy up way more. I mean, Ace really is the the concept of unrealized potential in One Piece to me, but I get it. Rayleigh stated that Conqueror's Haki cannot be directly trained, so maybe Whitebeard never caught on because Ace didn't continue to chase a Conqueror's dream and just became Whitebeard's subordinate. His goals then ultimately surrounded Whitebeard and his family, and he didn't want to be like his dad. He wanted Whitebeard instead to become the next Pirate King. Ultimately, Ace didn't desire to reign over anything, become the best at anything after he joined the Whitebeard Pirates, and once Newgate showed him how big the gap in their power truly was, I kind of think that Ace just sort of sputtered out. And well, Kid, he just got in over his head completely. I mean, we saw his measly one-man job with his Color of Kings, and then he tried to challenge Shanks. I mean, come on, dude. Like, what were you even thinking? You can knock one person out. One. And only in the anime, by the way. And meanwhile, Shanks has the power to KO at least 100,000 people. What a terrible choice picking a fight with a Haki god, but he will never learn, I guess. I mean, to be fair, he clearly wanted to be Pirate King, and he did work his butt off to get there, but he's also just a morally gray version of Luffy, so Kid manifesting this type of Haki makes sense, but I just think that Oda wanted us to see that simply having Conquerors is not enough by far, or else Kid would have probably been a fairly strong fighter if he actually nurtured it. And I'm not sure if you agree, but to me it seems like you do have to just, want it more than everything else in the world to really unlock the highest tier of it. Which actually makes me kind of wonder, there is one other character that we do know that has Conquerors, but we've never actually seen them use it. Let me ask you this, how powerful do you think is Boa Hancock's Conqueror's Haki? Like, surely it's got to be fairly strong considering that she's the Pirate Empress and a former warlord, not to mention Amazon Lily is the arc where Haki really starts to become a thing in the story altogether, which makes it a little bit of a surprise that we don't often see her use Haki in general. Like, usually we just see her use that very broken devil fruit of hers, and considering that Blackbeard was able to defeat her Conqueror's Haki must not have been strong enough to surpass the Gura Gura no Mi and Yami Yami no Mi, and that's also making scaling her somewhat hard. Those are two beyond broken devil fruits, I get it, don't get me wrong, so I don't think the whole Haki surpasses devil fruits in general argument is very clear cut here. So my guess would kind of be that she's probably a middle of the pack type of Conqueror, as paradoxically as that sounds, and I wouldn't be surprised if she had advanced Supreme Conqueror's Haki, but I also wouldn't be surprised if she didn't. Does that make sense? What I do know is that she's going to get a chance to show off why she's a Conqueror and if her power is truly goated in the final saga. I mean, she's gonna be Luffy's ally no matter what, and wannabe wife, can't forget that. So as we transition into the end of the story, surely she'll come to help him out, right? And he kind of needs it too, because all of his enemies seem to have a glaring weakness to Conqueror's Haki at the moment, according at least to my man Scalper here. If I had to ballpark her Conqueror's Haki power on a gut check, my guess would be somewhere close to Doflamingo, maybe? I mean, he was able to knock out most of the G5 Marines stationed at Punk Hazard, and he awakened it at a really young age. Like, in a sick and twisted turn of fate, he's our first real showcase of an evil Conqueror in all of One Piece, actually. Because Dofi awakened his Conqueror's Haki in an effort to defeat the North Blue citizens that tried to torture him and his family, kind of understandably, which is messed up because he was a kid, but also a really hard topic to debate because, well, he's also a celestial dragon and just kind of a dick in general. They kind of are rotten people, so turning on them by default kind of makes sense. Can't really blame the people. Regardless, he is really strong. He was able to pull off a Haki clash with post-time skip Luffy, who was still able to drop 50,000 people before that pretty effortlessly, meaning that Dofi exists in at least that very same sort of territory. So now imagine what would happen if this dude were able to master advanced Conquerors. Like, he'd be truly a living demon. And hopefully he gets the chance to do that. Maybe if he joins Cross Guild or ends up as a Domi reversed heavenly demon for Imu and the Holy Knights. I think there is more to be seen from Dofi before the story ends, and I am all here for it. And as a result, more conquering to see as well. So win-win, I guess, for everyone. All right, so we've now generally covered the spectrum from weakest to strongest so far. We've got a nice idea of where everyone kind of can scale compared to each other, right? Awesome. Let's now shift into talking about some of the characters I am most excited to see bloom in the final saga, who I think have some insane potential ahead of them. Now, as a disclaimer, that doesn't mean I think that all three of these have or even will surpass Shanks necessarily, but I do think for various reasons, all of them could at least theoretically match his power. First up, Katakuri here is an absolute menace, who seemingly awakened his Conqueror status out of the need to defend his family. He's actually a very honorable man, and being the strongest child of a Yonko, it's only natural I think that he's also awakened this type of Haki. Let's not forget, he was able to clash with Luffy during Whole Cake Island, and as a fighter, is probably the first person we've talked about today that might actually just straight up be stronger than the current Rayleigh Scalper. We're not talking about young Rayleigh Scalper, those guys were absolutely broken, but currently. Now, in the fight, we saw that his Conqueror's Haki compared to his Observation Haki isn't quite as peak just yet, but I would go out on a limb and guess that it'll rival Big Mom's at some point sooner or later. And I mean, to be honest, if she is dead, he's probably now the new captain of the Big Mom Pirates. Big question mark. Where's Katakuri? I really want more Katakuri, guys. Please, Oda, give me Katakuri. All right, because after a big inhale of copium here, I think that Katakuri is almost guaranteed to help Luffy in the final saga, and I do think that's when we'll really get to see the full extent of his Conqueror's will blooming too. I mean, I'm pretty confident that he really wants to show Blackbeard what's up for kidnapping his sister Pudding, so rest assured, big dog Mochi over here will return in Avengers Secret Wars. No, that was wrong. I'm the final saga of One Piece. That one. All right, another character who I'm also really stoked to see bust out some nasty Conquerors later on is my girl, Yamato. Because the Haki that Yamato uses in the story is actually absolutely insane, considering they've been kind of chained up for most of their life. We do know that she's got advanced Conqueror's Haki, able to infuse their Kanabo Club to clash with her daddy Kaido, and their will and desire to be like Odin, free and roaming the seas, overcoming their father, is what truly pushed Yamato into awakening her inner Conqueror. So Yamato to me is a surefire character that is bound to show up again and help Luffy out in the final saga, as we see with her seamlessly never-ending cover story right now, and I really do hope that we get to see some more Thunder Baguas rip through the Holy Knights and Admirals, this time on Luffy's side. Yamato also got some unsettled beef with Green Bull after all, and it'd be a shame to not see that fight resolved properly. At this point, Yamato just needs a tiny power-up or two to really close in on that Shanks and Kaido level of power, I think, becoming one of the greatest Conquerors to ever do it. But speaking of the greatest to ever do it, Goats right here, the future strongest swordsman in the world is also, in case you forgot, a Conqueror 2 certified now. And of course, me and many other people have theorized for the longest time that Zoro was always kind of using Conqueror's Haki, even even before the time skip, by the way. I mean, Astra is seemingly an application of his Supreme King Haki, as Kaido sort of alludes to when Zoro uses Dead Man's Game to attack Kaido, and since Zoro's been using 9 sword style before the time skip, this may be his first display of Supreme King will in action right here on Enies Lobby. And while that of course has not been officially confirmed, it is definitely true post time skip, because Scopper here confirmed that it has been leaking out slowly but surely and really turned up a notch after Wano. And I think we can agree that Zoro really needs to embrace and train up his Conqueror's will for his own dream as well. I mean, defeating Shanks' former rival Dracula Mihawk is not exactly an easy feat, I would say, but Zoro does exude a king's will in his goal to become the world's strongest swordsman, all to realize the dream of his childhood friend Kuina. Now that I kind of think about it, maybe the true strongest Conqueror is a flight of stairs? Now to defeat Mihawk and claim that title, Zoro will need to, at the very least, rival Shanks' power level by the end of the series at his max strength. He's not close to that at all yet and has a really long way to go, but I'm very certain by the end of the series, Zoro will stand in the top 5 Conqueror Haki users in One Piece, especially if Conqueror's infusion is the secret of creating a black blade. Something that Zoro definitely will have to do by the end of the series, unless he creates a white blade. Now, seeing as I just talked about Yamato and Zoro, I should also talk about the man who bridges both of these people really nicely, Kozuki Oden, the Giga Chat of Wano. He's the low-key third pillar of the whole Roger-Whitebeard rivalry, and he stands quite high on the list with his powerful Conqueror's Haki too. For one, he's the former Shogun of Wano and one of the greatest fighters of all time, so it does make sense that he also had Supreme King Haki, as he tried to keep up with Roger and Whitebeard, just slightly behind those two guys. His travels were what inspired Yamato to become a conqueror, his blade Enma is now allowing Zoro to slice down all who oppose him, and his desire to be free and sail the world led him to aid the Pirate King himself, and he was the one who hurt Kaido. But nonetheless, Oden's raw power and skill wasn't quite at Newgate's or Roger's level, if we're being honest, and so I do think that Shanks at the very least rivals or probably surpasses them when it comes to Conqueror's Haki at this point. So while you do get fairly high on my list here, Oden, you aren't the king of kings and able to beat Shanks, I think. But maybe your son will be, because it's kind of unclear whether Momonosuke has it or will ever get Conqueror's Haki, but seeing as I've given you a few examples of genetics playing a pretty big part in this, I do think that Momo definitely is a very major candidate to pull it off at some point. Especially considering his growth as a character, as he squared up with Kaido and Green Bull to defend his own country. So Momo, you do have the makings of a true king, I think. And I do feel like in the final saga, you might end up pulling more than your own weight with it if Yamato or maybe the Scabbards help you with the Haki stuff a little bit. Oh, and actually, while we're here, let's talk a little bit more about the hidden Conqueror of Wano. Wait, no, gosh, I smudged it in my writing. This says Kano, not Wano. Huh, my bad. Anyhow, we already in it, so let's talk about the very distinct original kingdom, Kano Country, an island based on China, located, by the way, in the West Blue, as you can see on our beautiful pixel map right here that you can get your hands on Patreon, by the way. Now, if you're wondering who the heck is from here, it's the homeland of the mighty Qin Zhao the Drill. Remember him? Yeah, Konet here is a confirmed Conqueror Haki user who got one-shot by Garp in the past. Well, we do know where you aren't getting placed, that's for sure, I guess. So let's just not mess around too much. We do know that this dude ain't even close to the top, and he's lucky to be this high up in general. I mean, you are powerful and not a slouch, but compared to any of the top guys here, I really don't need to guess how high your ceiling will go in the future. I don't think we're gonna see you again, kind of my vibe that I'm getting. And this gives me an excuse to now shift into a subset of conquerors that I haven't talked about yet, which is the Marines. Because you see, turns out ruling the world with an iron fist is just as viable for enacting a kingly will, it seems, as being a pirate. And nobody, and really nobody, embodies the iron fist better than Garp himself. Well, physically, not metaphorically. He actually despises ruling with the Iron Fist, but you get what I'm saying. I mean, what am I supposed to tell you? I mean, Luffy's grandpa has a fist that straight up breaks islands, dog. Like, he is nuts with that Supreme King Haki. And really, all Haki for that that matter. In his prime, he rivaled Roger himself, so surely he must be the first person on my list to now surpass Shanks, right? Well, once again, I'm not entirely certain about that. I mean, Garp is mighty. Garp is strong. This is gonna turn into a poem. Wow. I mean, his armament is unmatched, truly, but, and I do say this with full theory and narrative brain in mind, I kind of feel like his Conqueror's Haki isn't stronger than Shanks's. I mean, okay, sue me, I do know, I do think it's awesome, and literally everything he does is insanely rad. I love him, like Galaxy Impact, literal godlike, but nonetheless, he is a lapdog of the government at the end of the day. He doesn't stand up to the greatest oppressors in the world themselves. He very much knows what the Gorosei and the other Celestial Dragons do, and he does nothing to stop them. He kind of enacts his own will exclusively on pirates who, by his own admission, aren't always bad. Now, his dream was just to surpass Roger, and he kind of never did that, but Shanks probably did, or at least is at Roger's level right now. At least him using Divine Departure kind of seems to heavily imply that to me, so I do feel like he's just not quite at Shanks's level in this specific Haki type, even in his prime. Luckily though, the next character I have to talk about will be a lot less controversial here, because right below Garp, we have his afro-wearing Buddha body, Sengoku. And despite him never actually displaying Supreme King Haki on page, I am insanely confident in thinking that the former Fleet Admiral, hello, is probably not going to be a joke. After all, he is framed as Garp's other half, the smarter one for sure, but also probably the weaker one, I guess. I mean, I kind of feel like if Sengoku was objectively stronger than Garp, he'd be framed that way, but it's always been sort of unspoken and implied that Garp outdoes him a little bit and chooses not to go for a higher position based on everything that he accomplishes, despite being offered an admiral position quite often apparently. Now, we have really no idea what truly drives Sengoku to be a conqueror. I mean, logically, it's defeating the pirates, but there isn't a lot else going on with him when it comes to kingly will. In general, we know very little about him. And in fact, I almost feel like his role as the Buddha would sort of take away from his conqueror's mindset. I mean, he brokers the peace and finds solace and comfort with order being fulfilled regardless of his position. That's why he willingly steps down from Fleet Admiral. That type of power just isn't that crucial to him. And to be honest, I think there's a good chance that stepping down could even boost his Conqueror's Haki as he's moved to the Inspector General role. He now has a chance to truly fix and conquer the corruption that is running rampage in the world government. And yeah, that's kind of it with the Marines. I mean, the only confirmed Marines with Conqueror's Haki are these two guys. I kind of feel like it should be more at this point, but yeah. Turns out nope. Luckily, the world government does have some other Haki beasts though, and they may actually surpass Shanks potentially. I am talking about the Gorosei. Now, these 5 old men here are truly something else, able to literally explode heads with just a glance, shake entire islands on their arrival, and that's without us having probably even seen like a 1/10 of their true power. Egghead Island was kind of just a teaser for them. We've seen a couple of glimpses of their immense Haki potential, but we do know that Joy Boy's single Haki knot was able to repel all of them back to Marijua. With that being said though, their newest member may actually be able to surpass Shanks, and that's because it's his pops, Figureland Garling. Because it is heavily implied by Oda during Shanks' meeting with Whitebeard that Garling was probably the one capable of permanently scarring Whitebeard during God Valley, as Whitebeard says that his scars ache when he looks at Shanks' face. And yeah, he is the spitting image of his father, minus the cool hairdo and, well, I guess hair color now officially. Can I just say, like, blonde Garling's kind of lame. I like the red one more, but hey, even Garling I think will be worse off than his son, because I kind of feel like that's just the nature of the beast. I mean, kids are supposed to surpass their parents, right? That's kind of anime 101. At the very least, they're gonna reach the same level, but it's always about the next generation, right? It's why Shanks bets on them so much, but it's also why I think that he surpassed a lot of the previous bigger and older pirates in terms of just sheer conqueror's mastery. Remember, at some point, Shanks was the next generation, and topping him will take someone either super old or super new. Speaking of old heads though, I do think it's time I talk about 3 characters who on paper should rival Shanks' Conqueror's Haki, which are of course the former 3 Yonko, Kaido, Big Mom, and Whitebeard himself. Now, it's no wonder that these absolute legends were on top of the sea in the New World. After everything that we saw in Marineford, Whole Cake Island, and then of course Wano, with their insane Haki and broken devil fruits, they crush the competition. Each of these former Rock's pirates have mastered advanced forms of each type of Haki, clearly dominating pretty much most other pirates on the planet. Most except Shanks. I really think it's important that all of these other Yonko at their prime had some of the most broken and powerful devil fruits in existence. Devil fruits that, may I add, when used in tandem with their Haki, made them the true monsters that they are. But Shanks? Well, that man is all Haki. No fruit, one arm by the way, and he's still on the same level, maybe even beyond. I mean, by Kaido's own admission, Haki is everything, and Shanks, he's all Haki, man. He, with only the slightest sliver of a doubt in my mind, clears all of them when it comes to pure Conqueror's will. I don't think it's too big of a gap, to be fair, but it is noticeable, and also, don't you feel like it would be wrong if he didn't? Now, here's the thing, none of that is confirmed, of course, but I do think that you can all see the logic here, right? Like, his Haki should be greater than theirs because it's kind of all he has. Like, the other three can get away with weaker Haki because of fancy scales, soul manipulation, or crazy earthquake powers. Shanks just kind of gotta do it with that dog in him, bro. And so the same kind of currently goes for Luffy. I mean, he's got Gear 5 and sick Conqueror's Haki, but we do know that he isn't Shanks level in the story. He kind of just got advanced Conqueror's Haki. Scopper and Kaido kind of confirmed that for us. Luffy has clearly not fully mastered his advanced Supreme King Haki yet, he's just barely scratched the surface really. Now don't get me wrong, one day, probably sooner than later, he will surpass Shanks. It's pretty much confirmed since Shanks is the person he wants to prove he can outdo, and you and me both know that Luffy will get there one day when he's Pirate King or the true Sun God or whatever. I mean, I don't know what he wants, but for now, he's just kind of in the upper tiers, which already pretty good, I would say. And the same thing I think goes for his buddy Loki, because at this moment as I'm recording this for you, technically Loki hasn't been confirmed to be an advanced conqueror yet, but Scopper, Luffy, and Loki himself are being very deliberate to say the crew needs his power every time strong Haki gets brought up, and you know, that's I think for me pretty good evidence to believe that those special eyes of his and his desire to be the sun god who surpasses rocks will definitely push him to an even crazier level than Shanks someday too, I think. Now, does that mean he will also reach Luffy's ultimate level? Maybe, probably not, but I'm very confident the Cursed Prince of Elbaf will also be in the top 5 or top 3 Haki users by the end of the series at the rate that his hype is going right now at least. By the way, if you want to join the top Haki ranks too, consider joining our Patreon. It does help me and my team out a lot making this content for you and lets me keep a steady flow of high quality content coming your way every week. No worries if not, by the way, we have a free weekly newsletter if you just want to spend no money, but if you graciously choose to support the channel here, I very much appreciate it. With that though, we can now finally shift away from characters I'm confident that Shanks surpasses and talk about some slightly more controversial figures. You know, people who could probably rival or even maybe be above Shanks. And the first big one we've got to talk about here is of course the man himself, Goldie Roger, the Pirate King himself. Now, at surface level, I feel it's obvious why he could reasonably be considered to be above Shanks. He was his captain, the greatest pirate to ever do it, and the man, by the way, who claimed the title of the show, the One Piece. So nobody really exudes Conqueror more than the man who dominated and conquered the entire ocean. But as I mentioned earlier with Garling, I kind of almost feel like that's why Shanks is probably stronger than him right now. I mean, Roger created an era with the express purpose of creating even more powerful and greater pirates than he was. And the other thing that I think somehow backs this up is the idea that Shanks is the man the Giants compare Joy Boy's Haki to, and of course Roger said was the chosen person. Now keep in mind that Roger met Dorian Broggy, but yet when that Haki knot was untied, they said it reminded them of Shanks, not Roger. So sure, there's a case to be made that they didn't see Roger's Haki in action at that point, but I kind of feel like mighty warriors like them would surely have detected that Roger's Haki was through the roof, right? So my gut's kind of telling me that Oda's trying to really get us to realize with all of these comments about Shanks that he has in fact already gone past Roger's level right now. But, so Roger already controversial, but these next three I'm really not sure about. Now assuming he had Conqueror's Haki, which come on, if he didn't, like what's Oda even doing? Rocksteezerback may truly be the first person who exceeds Shanks. Now of course he could have had a legendary devil fruit that helped him surpass his crew and the likes of Roger and Garp, but I kind of feel like his goal of being, you know, king of the literal freaking world would be a nice precedent for Conqueror's Haki surpassing a child of destiny like our red-haired friend here. And by the way, I'm also fairly certain that the king of the world right now also is probably on a level beyond Shanks. I mean, Imu's Haki really is something else. They are the literal conqueror. They conquered the entire One Piece world. Somehow they managed to pull it off with their demonic powers and abyss magic, but also with Haki that can threaten literally all of Elbaf, the largest island in the world. Not to mention that all of that is being done remotely through a satellite body and not even their true form. So to me, Shanks, you may be the king of the ocean, but Imu's Haki makes me understand why they are the king of the world, which is why only a real god could possibly surpass them. And despite this sneaky transition, you won't guess who I'm talking about next, because the sun god himself, the Haki weaving madman, Joy Boy, is next on our list. Like, if Shanks had Wi-Fi Haki, then Joy Boy with his rope knot of Haki, well, that man had Ethernet Haki. And I want you to go out and use the term, let's make Ethernet Haki a thing. Now, delivering massive Conqueror's will hundreds of years after his death across the entire Grand Line, Joy Boy himself says that it's the greatest Haki, and I have no reason to doubt this man. And Dory and Broggy were left questioning if it even surpassed Red Hair, while also commenting on how it had no ill intent whatsoever. It was something pure, kind, and straight up repelling darkness, warm and welcoming, like, you know, the sun itself. So to me, Joy Boy, you were so far truly the strongest to ever do it. Roger knew it, Shanks knows it, and Luffy will probably be realizing it pretty soon too. And I mean, all this talk about powerful conquerors makes me kind of wonder how Luffy and his crew will make it through this final saga. They only have two on their side at this point, Zoro and Luffy, but that may not actually be true anymore, because I think that Oda has been hinting at a few other Straw Hats having an awakening in the final saga, and it could be the secret to Luffy's inevitable victory. Don't believe me or just curious who it is? Well, check out that video right here where I break it all down, and let me know what you think in the comments after. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks as always to our wonderful Patreons right here. You guys rule, and I will see you in the next video. Enough clapping now. Wow. Applause for the Patreons.